Ross Jackson at LouisianaSports.net put out his biggest takeaways for the Saints at OTAs, whether it's, the quarterback competition, what the rotation is going to look like on the lines of scrimmage, receivers, everything like that. Want to dive into that a little bit. He has a good write-up of it where he goes way into detail. Up on LouisianaSports.net, you can see it there. And he mentioned that when he was out there during the media viewing portion, it was the first media practice. It was easy to call Spencer Rattler the front runner of this quarterback competition. He's, there's no surprise. Rattler's been in the NFL for a year. Rattler actually completed all 8 of his 7-on-7 passes. Now, that doesn't mean that Tyler Shough was bad. He said it was 6 or 7 of the 8 passes that Tyler Shough threw, he completed as well. So you like to see that. It's not like, oh, they were both bad. Spencer Rattler just sucked a little bit less. No, they actually both did a really nice job. But look, when it comes to the Saints quarterback situation, we talked about Jake Haener earlier this week with that oblique injury, and we kind of thought he was the third guy in line for that job anyways. Well, with that oblique injury, watch out for Hunter Deckers. He's the undrafted free agent. He was actually a tryout player. He wasn't even an undrafted free agent. They came to camp. They kept him on after that first week with those tryout players. He's from Iowa Western, but he's not a normal Iowa Western quarterback. So he was at Iowa State for 3 seasons, 2020, 21, and 22. Was one of the highest rated quarterback recruits ever in the history of Iowa State football. Played sparingly his first 2 years. In 2022, he takes over as the full-time starter, and he wasn't bad. 66% completion, over 3,000 yards. Now, 19 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, but it was his first year as a starter. If you remember the sports betting scandal that came out with Iowa players and Iowa State players, it was kind of that whole state. Hunter Deckers was one of those guys involved when he was a quarterback at Iowa State. So, he leaves the team. He goes to Iowa Western. And at Iowa Western, in last season, 64% of his passes, 3,800 yards, 32 touchdowns, just 10 interceptions. And he can run a little bit as well. He's a big guy. He's about 6'3". He's around 220, 225 pounds. He's a talented guy. I'm not saying Hunter Decker is going to come in and challenge Spencer Rattler and Tyler Shough for a starting position. That's not going to happen. They've invested too much into Tyler Shough, and Spencer Rattler has been here for a year already. What I am saying is that if that oblique injury turns out to be more than just a few weeks setback for Jake Haener, Hunter Deckers could make this team. There's a lot of buzz around him right now coming out of training camp. The next position that Ross wanted to highlight was the starting offensive line. So we've talked a lot about Trevor Penning during the first couple days of OTAs, moving from right tackle where he played last year to that left guard spot. Well, it's been Kelvin Banks at left tackle. Most kind of expected that. Penning at left guard. McCoy and Ruiz at center and right guard. Everyone expected that. Talaiese Fuaga, who was your starting left tackle a year ago, moving to right tackle, which was his dominant position that he played in college. He played a lot more right tackle than left tackle. If you remember when they drafted Fuaga, a big reason why me and a lot of other people wanted that to be the draft pick was because of his versatility. He could play on the left side. He could play on the right side. He could play guard and tackle. They've moved him back over to right, where he's apparently more comfortable, even though I thought he was good at left. But Kelvin Banks, that more pure left tackle. So that's kind of your starting O-line, but the Saints have a chance to actually have some decent depth on the offensive line. You brought in Dylan Raduns from the Tennessee Titans, who a lot of people thought was going to be that starter at left guard, but moving Penning over there, maybe Raduns is a good rotational piece, a good swing guard. Will Clapp is currently on the roster. He can play center or guard. Nick Saldiveri can play guard. He's currently still on this roster. Landon Young has played a lot of football for this team. Left tackle, right tackle. He's kind of been your plug-and-play guy anytime one of your starting tackles go down. He's still on that team. That's 4 guys that can make decent backups for you. Now, they're not going to carry. I don't expect all 9 of those guys to make the team, but you have options on the offensive line because Penning can play tackle. Will Clapp, center, guard. Landon Young as a tackle. Dylan Raduns can play either guard spot. All of a sudden, you have quality depth on the offensive line if your starting 5 that you have put together right now works out. I actually like the pieces there a little bit more than I did, especially this time last year. Now, he goes on to mention Brandon Staley's defense as one of the things to look at. Stand-up edge rushers, changes in front, coverages. We're going to get more into that as the season gets closer. But sticking with the offense here, he mentions Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed as two guys to keep an eye on. And it makes a lot of sense, right? Both of them coming back from injuries of that injury-plagued receiving core that you saw in 2024. A lot of people have asked, were the Saints going to draft a receiver high in the draft? They did not. Were they going to sign a big-name free agent? They did not. I don't consider Brandon Cooks a big-name free agent, but they did bring in Brandon Cooks. So is Olave or Rashid a wide receiver one? No, but maybe they don't have to be. They're both quality receivers when they are fully healthy. You also added Brandon Cooks. He is past 30. He is a little bit past his prime, but he could still make a little bit happen. Now, his production did drop every year he was in Dallas, but he dealt with some injuries as well. If he can stay healthy, do you have a great receiving core? No. I'm not trying to say, Tyler Shough's going to come in here, play in front of a really good starting five on the offensive line. He's got studs on the outside. No. That offensive line still has question marks because you got a lot of new pieces, and your receivers, let's call it like it is, are below average. You don't have that bona fide wide receiver one, but maybe you can have a decent group. With Olave, Rashid Shaheed, and Brandon Cooks, maybe that's enough to just help out Tyler Shough a tad. You're not going to go out there and, again, give him the best weapons. I think this is actually one of the weaker wide receiver cores in the NFL. You have Dante Pettis. He's apparently working pretty high in the receiver rotation at OTAs. You signed him in the middle of the year last year. You have Bub Means, who you drafted a year ago. So you have pieces there, but they all have to stay healthy. Again, you don't have that one dominant guy, so you got to make sure that room's as healthy as possible so each receiver can complement the other. The last thing he gets into is the cornerback spot. You have McKinstry, you have Alontae Taylor. They are both back. You traded Marshawn Lattimore to the Washington Redskins halfway through the year. We know that. And you lost Paulson Adebo to the Giants in the offseason. McKinstry, I think, can lock down one of those spots. It's uncertain whether or not Alontae Taylor can play that outside corner position, just because he's played a lot more nickel in the NFL as he has as that boundary corner. If McKinstry can lock down one side, who could be on the other? Because my preference would be playing nickel package pretty much all the time. That's kind of a base defense for a lot of people anyways. Keep Alontae Taylor right there as that slot corner. Have Kool-Aid McKinstry on one side. Hopefully one of these younger guys can step up. Veteran Isaac Yiadom has taken the majority of the first team reps. But Quincy Riley's out there. Quincy Riley's going to battle Isaac Yiadom for that starting spot. When you look at Quincy Riley, he was a 4th-round pick, so the Saints, spent pretty significant draft capital on him. 3 years at Louisville, 8 interceptions. One of them returned for a touchdown. 74 total tackles. He's got a little bit. Forced a fumble there as well. His numbers don't jump off the page, but he's a solid corner. He's decent size for a rookie. That's a guy to keep an eye on. I think the battle between Yiadom and Quincy Riley is going to tell you a lot. If one of those guys can step up, you no longer need Alontae Taylor to play out wide. I think if Alontae Taylor is an outside corner, it's out of necessity, not because that's what's best for your defense. Because I think what's best for your defense is having a guy like Alontae Taylor roaming in that nickel position because he's been so good there at his time in New Orleans.